Hey y'all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you might be joining us from in the world today. My name is Meg Alexander, and as always, I am incredibly honored to get to host another fabulous Power to Fly Chat and Learn event. Now, I can't wait to introduce y'all to our speaker and get started with our questions. So before I do that, I just want to go over some real quick housekeeping items. These are especially important if maybe this is your first Power to Fly event. If that's the case, hi, nice to meet you. We're so happy to see you. And if you are one of our frequent flyers, apologies, y'all. This will be a little repetitive, but just sit tight. So the big thing for you to know with Power to Fly events is that participation is key. We want to make sure that y'all get as much out of today as we put into it. And so there's a couple different ways you can do that. If you'd like, we always encourage you to turn on your camera and share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely. But there's no pressure to do that, truly, y'all. Like, we don't care if you are tuning in from a corner office or your living room couch. You can be in a three-piece suit or your bathrobe. We do not care, y'all. We just want to meet you where you are. Now, if you have any concerns about showing up on the recording of today's session, just make sure that you don't come off mute. As long as you don't come off mute, you won't show up on the recording. Now, as we go into the session, I did say, like I said earlier, the session is being recorded. So what that means for you is that you don't have to take notes. You get to sit back, you get to relax, enjoy the conversation that Amanda and I are about to have, and really take in the information. And this is especially helpful if Amanda says something today that is just so mind-blowing that you have to share it with a friend or a coworker or a relative. You can always share this recording with them. Now, in a couple days, like 2 to 4, you'll get an email from Power to Fly that will have a link to rewatch this recording once it gets posted to our website. But let's say you can't wait 2 to 4 days. You want to send this right away. You can absolutely do that. You're just going to go over to our YouTube channel. I'll share links for all of this in the chat as we go, but you can head to our YouTube channel and check out the videos when they're posted there, usually about 5 to 15 minutes after the end of the live stream. So very much encourage you to take a look at our YouTube channel if you're a little bit faster, but also our website has the full archive of every Chat and Learn event, truly everything that's happened from the first Lunch and Learn event with Lauren Haggerty through today. So while you can look at some of our archives on our YouTube page, I also very much recommend you check out our website. Now, you are also highly encouraged to participate by writing in the group chat. So to kind of get y'all started over there, I just want to let y'all know that you can tell us where you're joining from. I'm really, really interested to see how far our global audience spreads. I'm coming to you from Toledo, Ohio. This is land that was cared for by the Fox, Kickapoo, and Potawatomi tribes in my area. So if you know where you, if you want to share where you are or whose land you're on, please feel free to let us know. We've got people from India, Florida, San Francisco, Atlanta. Loving this, y'all. Cannot wait to see how far y'all spread out. All right, now in that group chat, you are also highly encouraged to add comments about what you think about what we're talking about. If you have additional questions you want to ask, send them in the group chat. We want to know. Now, if we're going to go over one of your questions and you're not, maybe we don't have kind of the right, the right angle on the question. If you think there's details we need to know, let us know in the group chat. We are happy to involve y'all as much as we can in today's event. If you have a question or a comment that you want to make, but you want to be anonymous, not a problem, y'all. Just DM me so you can find my name, Meg Alexander, in the dropdown instead of sending that message to everyone. All right, now I am really excited to introduce you to our speaker. Before I do, she's here today on behalf of CallRail. Now, CallRail has been a Power to Fly partner for a little while now. They are fabulous, super, super interesting org. And I want to encourage y'all to check out their company page on powertofly.com. Now, like I said, I will send links for all of this in the chat as we go, so sit tight. But CallRail's company page is going to look much like what you see in front of you. Now, the big thing there, you can look at their about info. You can learn more about the company culture, their benefits. That events button, that's going to take you to recordings on past events like this that CallRail has participated in. It'll also allow you to see if we have any events planned with them in the future, and you can register right from that page. Now, last but not least, the big thing for all of these company pages is jobs, right? So you can click on jobs, search all the listings that CallRail has to offer right now. But one thing I want to highlight for you, at the top of CallRail's company page, once you log in, there's going to be a big pink button that says follow. Clicking that button puts you on the follow network, and it does some really great things for you. But effectively what it does is it works like your friend who already works at CallRail. So it allows Power to Fly to keep CallRail on your radar. We take some of the work off of you for job seeking. We will email you when they post new roles, so that way you don't have to keep coming back and checking job boards that seemingly never change. And the other thing it does is it allows Power to Fly to make sure that you are on CallRail's radar as well. So we will let their HR team know even before you fill out an application that you are interested in working with them. This is a very, very good option if you are actively job seeking, but maybe don't see anything listed with CallRail that really suits you right now. So that way you can kind of keep your eyes peeled and find out when they post new roles. But the other thing it's good for is if you're not actively seeking, but something you hear today about CallRail really sparks with you, that if you go through and join that follow network, then by the time you do, you are ready to come back and actively job seek, you have an entire lineup of companies to take a look at that you already find interesting. So really awesome thing, awesome tool to use. If you've got other questions about that, please feel free to send them in the chat. I'm happy to help y'all out with those features. All right, now I am very, very, very excited to get to introduce you to our speaker, Amanda Coffelt. Now, Amanda is a UX design manager and within design operations for CallRail. Now, Amanda has worked with marketing and product design teams for SaaS, or software as a service, and e-commerce companies for over 10 years. Now, she has helped design and rebuild multiple brands. She's overhauled websites, launched disruptor experiences, as well as built flourishing design teams. Now, Amanda specializes in brand and product marketing, strategy and design, product UX UI design, and all things design operations. She lives with her adorable son and husband in Smyrna, Georgia, and they think the Canadian Rockies are their second home. Thank you so much for joining us today, Amanda. Very happy to have met you. Is there anything else that you think our audience should know about you?
Hi, thanks for the intro. I'm very happy to be here, excited to get to chat about all these topics. I do have one random fact, and that's that I wrote a book. Use the word wrote lightly. It was actually illustrated. It's not in print anymore, but if you search I Draw on Cats, I was the creator of that illustration turned connect the dot experience book.
That is so cute. Absolutely adorable. All right, now we're going to dive into the questions. Now, like I said earlier, if you submitted a question during today's event and you're not sure if we're going to get to it, send it in the chat. If you have a question that you asked and you want to give us more context or something, send it in the chat. Ask early, ask often. It's the best way to make sure that you get answers from today's event. All right, so first question that we had. I want to see if we can dive in deeper a little bit on what your experience was like when you were transitioning into a manager role within the design field. So can you talk us through what that was like for you?
Sure. This is a great question. My experience started working as a team of one in design. So I actually had to learn how to manage pretty quickly because I was a team of one. I had to manage my projects. I had to create my own processes. I had to do all of that on my own. I had to figure it out. And so what I found when I was doing that was I really enjoyed the ops elements. I loved the strategy, the intake process, advocating for my first hire. And as we began to grow, since I was already naturally filling in a lot of those pieces as a manager, I started to realize I didn't need to be in the pixels as much. I really, really liked the operation side of it. I really liked refocusing and learning more about leadership. So it was kind of a naturally organic phase for me. If there's any other teams of one out there, you probably know what I'm talking about in terms of like having to take on a lot of those roles yourself and having to figure that out.
What do you think was the biggest driver for you to want to make this change? There's a lot of people that might not feel that push. So is there something that happened that made you feel like you wanted to go into management?
Yeah, I think just by experiencing those pieces, not only was it an organic experience for me, I actually liked it. And so I wanted to learn more of, okay, how can I dive deeper into the operational side of things? And after we needed to grow, and I got to do my first hire. And while I was still in the pixels, I realized, okay, I was in more of that team lead space, more so than like full manager. And I realized, okay, we need to grow even more. I had to ask myself, do you want to stay in the pixels or do you want to grow your team? And so it was more, the driving force was actually the scaling of our team. And so I had to make that decision. So, and I started to realize I liked helping others succeed. I liked the managerial aspect of coaching, mentoring, and seeing them succeed more than myself. And that was more, it meant more to me than being in the pixels. And so that's how I made that change. So I would say the forcing function or the drive was actually the scaling of the team.
I like that. I think it's interesting to find out that it was like not just something internal that you wanted to do, but there was like that external factor on it as well. I think there's probably a lot of us who are trying to balance those two drives there. So thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about your experience as a first-time manager. What were some of the big challenges you faced? What should people expect? Well, let's go with you first. Let's see what you faced.
Ooh, I faced. So like I said before, I started kind of more in that team leadership role. So I was having to balance like both leading people and managing the pixels, right? And being in the design. And so that was really hard. You had to stop and think about, where should I be spending my time? I had to also advocate for the growth of the team so that I could get more out of the pixels. So while it was a force of like scaling, we also needed to scale. And so I had to think about that. Those were definite key challenges: when to scale, when to be in the pixels, when to know how to grow, how to learn how to get buy-in for either that you need more time to design or you need more people, and having those conversations with leadership and learning how to have them being able to help them see the benefit either way.
Yeah, I think that's a really big one, that those conversations that you might not have had to have as an individual contributor are now so much more fraught, because you're not just dealing with repercussions for yourself, you're dealing with them for your team and trying to advocate for all those people.
Yes. You have to be able to also see it from the business perspective as well. So if they're moving faster, you can present to leadership. You can say, hey, these are the benefits we get if we hire people with these specialized roles, or we need more generalists, or this will help me get out so I can strategize with you, make sure we're working on the right things and helping the team be efficient and effective at the same time. You have to be able to speak the language of the business as well.
Yeah, that's smart. That's a very good point there. Okay, so one of the terms and stuff that were thrown around in the descriptor for today's session, we mentioned this idea of failing forward. Could you elaborate on what this means to you, so that people are kind of all on the same page as we go on with this subject?
Yes. So failing forward to me is learning from mistakes in a proactive manner. So instead of sitting in the frustration of failing, it's using it as an opportunity to say, okay, that thing happened. Am I going to sit in it, or am I going to grow and learn from it? And so failing forward is being willing to like accept the mistakes and grow and move forward.
I like that. Yeah, I think that's something, a lot of us need to have that ability. There's that thing from Ted Lasso about having a goldfish memory, because you just got to keep swimming forward and not get dragged down by those other things. So yeah, I love that advice there. Okay, so hold on, there we go.
I love that you bring up Ted Lasso. He's like one of my favorite shows right now.
It's fabulous. I'm not ready for it to be over. I'm dragging my feet, but like, it's just wonderful. If you haven't seen it, please go. Yeah, please do it, y'all. Okay, so let's talk about some of those mistakes. What were some of the things what were some situations where you had to fail forward? How did you turn it from failure into failing forward?
Yeah, so I have a great example for this where I failed pretty bad at first. And I'm glad, because now I can share it with other people and you guys can learn from my mistakes. So one key mistake I made was not knowing how heavily involved I needed to be in my designer's worlds at first. I was still struggling with that space of like, how much do I need to be in the pixels and how much do I just let them go and flourish? But when you're going from IC to manager, there's this discomfort with being pulled out of the pixels. You almost feel like you're not doing your job if you're not in Figma, if you're not in Sketch, if you're not in your design programs, and you feel like you need to be, because that's like what you do, but that's not what you do anymore. And so I remember talking to a mentor at the time. And if you don't have one, I highly, highly recommend getting one. They are lifesavers and they can help you grow through a lot of these spaces. There's a lot of, I won't get into it now, but there's a lot of resources out there to get one. But I was struggling, and I'm talking to her about the star designer I have. She was running really, really fast on some of her projects, and I wanted to collaborate with her. I felt like a little left behind. And so when I talked with her, she had a great question after I was like explaining this. And she was like, so your problem is that you have an amazing designer on your team and you don't have to worry about her? How's that? She was almost like, how is that a problem? And so I paused and I was like, oh my gosh, I was realized I was getting in the way of my star designer and everything that she needed to do. And because I thought it was still my job, it was preventing her from doing hers. And so that's when I realized, I need to give away my Legos. Like, these aren't my Legos anymore. They're her Legos. And so, what I realized was I needed that. Well, that was my feel forward moment, right? I could sit down and I could be stuck in the like frustration and kind of embarrassment, or I could be like, all right, nope, this is the opportunity to grow and shift. And so I got out of her way. I reiterated my trust in her. Like, I had to go back to her and say, hey, I think I'm getting in the way here. And I don't want you to think you need to go through me on these things, or that you need to wait on me. I want you to be able to run with this. And I want you to know I trust you. And so that was great. I didn't know how great it was until I actually had more time to like refocus, leading strategy, doing more of the design ops work, and building more of the team. But that was the opportunity I got by removing myself and letting her flourish.
I absolutely love that. I like, because it is really, it's a tough role, right? When you're transitioning, it can be very unclear what you're taking with you and what you're leaving behind. And I think probably, obviously we can't hear from your employee at this point, but like, knowing that your boss has trust in you, especially when the relationship isn't like clicking right along, it's incredibly helpful. It's, having that trust is what enables people to give you the benefit of the doubt instead of assuming like, oh, well, she doesn't think I can do this.
Yes.
So I think that's wonderful. And I love that, even though this was an existing team, I like that you further clarified it by saying like, hey, just to reiterate, in case it wasn't clear, I think you can do this. So I think that's great. All right. Okay. So let's talk about some of your personal strengths. I want to know which ones were the most useful when you transitioned into being a design manager.
Yeah, this is a great question. So I have a natural tendency to work towards just the right amount of, I say just the right amount, just the right amount of organization. So operations was kind of second nature to me. Like I said, when I was designing as a team of one, I had to do the project management, the program management. I had to figure out our intake systems and all of that. But it became very naturally to me because I like being able to create efficient and effective systems. And I hate redoing the same thing over and over again if I don't need to. So by learning my tools, like whether it's Asana, Jira, Monday, oh my goodness, how many Airtable, like all of these like project management systems, I really honed in on what are the things I can automate and like not have to worry about anymore so that I can focus on designing. Because I loved that so much, I was able to take that in as a strength to management as well. And I got super nerdy about it. I will nerd out about it all day long if anybody lets me. But also extroversion and talking with people. I love learning people's stories. So recruiting and hiring and onboarding became I didn't know they were strengths at the time, but I began to learn that they were as I rolled more into the role. And that was huge. That was important because people are interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them when you're trying to get them on your team. And if you can't do that well, if you can't open up, if you can't like mirror the culture of your company while you're interviewing, then they don't really know what kind of experience they're getting. So if you can infuse that into your practices, then they really know what they're getting into. That was a huge strength. Also just a lot of curiosity and eagerness to learn was core. I think you need that as a leader. It needs to be mirrored with listening. I will not say I'm still growing on, I think everybody is always growing on their listening skills, but that's something that I think you also have to have. And when I am able to slow down and get time to be empathetic, time to listen, time to hear the stories of other people, you learn so much more than if you're just trying to figure it out all on your own.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, that's one of those things that I feel like I mean, everybody knows, right? But I feel like people forget that every single person you meet knows things that you do not. And so I think it is really important to make sure that those communication lines are open, because otherwise somebody might never have what they think is the right opportunity to talk to you about something. So yeah, I think that's
Right.
really great.
You
Was
also
there
need
any,
that.
oh, go
Oh,
ahead, sorry.
oh no, I was just thinking like that's perfect, because if you get to hear people's stories, especially even in interviewing, then you can see where they meet some of the gaps on your team too, right? And you can see, oh, we need that. We need that kind of thinking. We need somebody that can do something me and the rest of my team can't.
Mhm. Yeah, very, very true. Were there any strengths that ended up being really, really useful that you never would have thought would be something you would need as a manager?
That's interesting. I think this is going to sound funny, but using my dorkiness to my advantage.
Yes.
This is not something I think you're going to read in any kind of leadership book. But for me personally, because I'm a little bit dorky and nerdy, I allow myself to be vulnerable. I allow myself to be real with my team. I don't feel like I have to have everything buttoned up all the time. I'm human just like them. And that's not something that I think I would have originally anticipated. Like, oh, it's okay to just be me. Like, you think you have to be super buttoned up and like have all the answers as a leader sometimes. And
Mhm.
leaning into not having to be that has actually produced some of the best relationships and best teammates I've ever had.
That honestly makes a ton of sense. And the second you said, like, yeah, I share my dorkiness, the first word that came to my mind was vulnerability, because
Yeah.
you're opening yourself up, like your personal self, not just like, oh, I'm the boss at work, or who you are in terms of like your employees, your team. But I like that, that idea of opening up who you actually are, so that you give people that chance to connect with you. And it makes them feel a little bit safer to be like, I don't like nerdy stuff, I like this other weird stuff. And that way you can be like, sweet, like nerding, like listening to people talk about the stuff that they absolutely like love, listening to somebody nerd out about something is my favorite, y'all. It's the best. So I love, love, love getting creating that sense of safety, or that freedom to communicate. I like that a lot.
Absolutely.
Oh, and we've got somebody chiming in the chat thread saying being yourself makes you relatable to the team. And that is absolutely accurate. I think that's wonderful. Okay, so let's talk about people who are, people who might be thinking about a leadership role someday. Do you think that it's possible to land a role as a design manager when you don't have any previous experience in a leadership role?
I love this question. And I think absolutely yes. And chances are that if you want to manage, you probably are already doing a lot of the things you would need to as a manager, because leaders lead regardless of whether or not it's in their title. So you don't have to wait to start leading. You might not have that manager title yet, but are you mentoring? Are you teaching other skills? Are you helping them build relationships, build their soft skills? Are you helping them learn how to collaborate? Are you coaching? Are you training? And so the first thing I think is like, if you're doing these things, you're already on your way to management if you want to be there. And I would say, yeah, if you are doing these things, include them in your resume, include them in your portfolio as examples of how you're doing that. If you're not doing it, I would say start. You don't have to wait to be able to do those kinds of things. Everyone needs help. Everyone needs coaching. Everyone needs mentorship. Be that person for them and lean into it. Start doing it. You can also sign up for mentorship programs online. If there's not an opportunity to mentor where you're at, you could start doing that. I'll have to think of lists of good ones that can't think of them off the top of my head right now, but you can find many different ways to start doing these things and adding it to your portfolio and showing like, look, I'm already doing it. I might not have the title, but I'm doing the activities involved. I think anybody looking for a design manager would take that very seriously.
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. I mean, managers are not born, they are made. So it's not like, there's an entire class of people that doesn't need to have that previous experience because they'll be fine. And the rest of us are, kind of stuck. That's not how it works. So I think it's really important that, you get it out of your head that you can't apply for these things just because you haven't had the title before, because, that's not how that works. And the other thing, like, keep in mind though, y'all, is that like, you don't have, for so long in my life, I thought you kind of needed to be like nominated, right? Like somebody needed to ask you if you wanted to be a leader, because otherwise, like, yeah, I think I'm a great leader, but I might actually be a terrible leader. So I think that that's really important that you mention that, like, you are communicating this, because not, there might be a ton of opportunities out there that you don't know about because you haven't told anyone at work that you have these aspirations.
Yes, absolutely. Talk with the people around you. Let them know that you have that interest. Let them know that you want to develop those skills, or that you've already been working towards them because you have this desire, this passion. Because chances are somebody around you is going to be like, oh, that's great, we actually need somebody in that role. Or here's other ways you can keep building that muscle.
Yeah, I like that.
I think it's Sheryl
Um,
Sandberg was like, you need to lean in. I know
yeah,
it's written for women, but like, there's also this whole, you don't have to do the job already to prove that you can do it.
yeah.
You can do just a little portions of it or pieces of it, and other people can see that like willingness to grow. And yeah, I think anybody that shows the tenacity and the will to just go for it, especially if you're not waiting to just have a title change, they're going to be like, oh, you have intrinsic motivation, we're interested. That's I think a powerful aspect of leadership too.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay, so let's talk about so if people are aspiring to a manager position, what kind of skills should people focus on fostering if they are trying to get from individual contributor up into management?
So I think it depends on the organization. I can speak broadly to my experience on what I think is hugely beneficial, no matter where you go. And I think that's learning how to motivate others, storytelling, listening, giving and receiving feedback, knowing how to do that well, building up vulnerability, which leads into like relationship building, gaining buy-in, speaking the language of the business, knowing how to network. And that's not just like externally, that's internally in your company too, knowing how to build those relationships across functions, across departments, and knowing how to interview. But all of that, a lot of that really goes back to motivating others, because when you have all of those things kind of packaged together, you can really help motivate. But you also need to know what makes your team kind of tick and what inspires each individual, because then you can really lean into their strengths, their desires, their passions, and get them more motivated, which helps everyone produce better outcomes. I think it's Julie Zhao. She writes about this in The Making of a Manager. Great book. If you don't have it, you should get it. Whether or not you're looking to be a design manager or manager in general, she has incredible insights, but she speaks to like your role as a manager is to help produce better outcomes. And that's not just like you, that's helping your team do that too. And it's not out of a manipulation, it's out of that our role is to, it's not just for the business either. You want them to get better outcomes for the business, but also if you're leaning into what motivates them and what empowers them, they're also growing their skills. They're getting better outcomes for their career. They're getting better outcomes for themselves. Like, it's not just a one-way street. You can build on all of these together.
All right, I grabbed a link for Julie Zhao's book. It goes right to her website. Bezos runs everything, so sorry, y'all, I'm not going to be sending you Amazon links, but you can check out her website because it looks like a very, very interesting book. Thank you, Amanda, for that recommendation.
Absolutely.
All right, so if people are unsure, like where and how they can start acquiring these skills that they need to be fostering, what are some of the avenues that you took when you were trying to add skills to your repertoire before applying for management jobs?
Boot camps. I went to, one of the first things I did was do a Nielsen Norman boot camp. They have a great leadership track as well as design track. You can, there's just so many ways of learning out there right now. I don't think there's almost too many. But Nielsen Norman was great. Again, finding a mentor, talking with them, and also just trying it with the people around you, trying to mentor and coach, and helping them along the way. I'm trying to think if there was like a specific, like, I read a lot. And I highly recommend reading anything you can. I'm trying to think of all the books that I read. I actually went to business school too. So a lot of business books were forced on me. So I kind of had like this culmination of like design, business, tech, all come together. And I really think that really works for management, actually. So I would say read anything and everything you can, whether or not it's related to design, if it's related to leadership and management. I did do that. I'm not just saying do it. I read a lot of books, but then practice it, right? Like, knowledge unused is just knowledge. And, you got to put it into action, and start now. You don't have to wait for the title change.
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. We have a little under 30 minutes left in today's session. So if y'all have questions, make sure you ask them before time runs out. You can send them in the group chat. You can DM them to me. If you want to use the Q&A bucket, you can do that too. It's, whatever y'all feel most comfortable with. All right. So as you move up the career ladder, you tend to spend less time designing and more time managing. I loved how you called it giving back the Legos or getting out of the pixels. So this person said they want to know more about how you experienced that transition from designing time into time managing. This person says, I want to go grow my career in design, but I know that I'll miss designing greatly.
Yes, I definitely missed this a lot at first too. You guys heard me talk about that struggle in the beginning, where I had to give away my Legos because I wanted to be in the pixels. I wanted to be designing. But when I got out of it, I realized there's so much more you can be designing that's not necessarily interfaces. So when you step away from, designing on screen, when you step away from whatever it may be, brand design, graphic design, software design, you begin to realize there's so much else that needs to be designed, but it's more on a people level. So you got to think, I started designing organizational structures, interview plans, onboarding systems, meeting cadences, events, training, activities. So while I didn't get to design in the pixels there, I even do service design for our team. How does our team fit together in the big spectrum of things? How is our organization organized? And how do all of these things flow together? So it's just a different way of designing. And I found that incredibly empowering and beneficial, because I felt like, okay, I actually have a leg up in this space because I've been designing in other ways. Now I can use everything I've learned in just a different way.
I like that. I like that a lot. Was there ever a project that came across your team that you were like, oh, I would love to be back there. Why am I doing that? Like, has there been anything that you were like, no, but I need to be hands-on. I want to be involved in this.
Sure, definitely. Like, I think there is always things along the way where you're like, wow, that's really amazing. I wish I could be more of a part of that. But you get to see them flourish, and you get to see, and in a way, by extension, you still are. But you just might not be as involved as in there. I will say that feeling may not always completely go away, but it kind of motivates you to like stay in the mix with everyone. It keeps you like on your toes for like wanting to be more interested about what's still going on, being in the day-to-day with your team on another level, experiencing things through them. I think it's good to like kind of keep that desire going a little bit. You don't want it to go away completely, because I think it keeps your curiosity alive.
Yeah, that makes sense. You do have to remain curious, not just about the tasks that you're doing, but about the tasks that your employees are doing, especially when you get into a management level where you might not know how to do everyone's job that works under you. So yeah, I think that's very, very important. Okay, so how did you go about understanding the UX of your team when you were, kind of diving in here? What did you do?
So I did everything I learned as an aspect of user experience. I used to work at CallRail, and I left for a few years, and then I came back. I had to go, learn other things in other spaces, which, that also speaks to like, make sure you manage your relationships and keep those strong, because bridges don't burn unless you burn them. Like, you need to make sure that because now I'm back. And when I came back, I really wanted to come in with the mindset of teach me what's working, teach me what's not working, but I want to learn from you. Just like we go to our users and we research, what do you like? What do you not like? What are your jobs to be done? We dive into our user needs. I was doing the same thing for this team. So I wasn't the only design manager, but I had a team of designers that I was building, and I needed to learn what's working well. So I went and did a bunch of stakeholder interviews. I did listening sessions, or listening tours. And then I started like diagramming. So this is where the service design came in. And I started like diagramming. This is how everyone's working. And I realized, oh, you guys are doing design thinking alongside Agile. Like, this is great. We can use this as a framework for how we might want to put like, I say handrails, not handcuffs, to guide other people. Since we have empowered teams, you don't want to overdo it on too much structure, but it can really help onboard people. And we were scaling really fast at the time. So we needed something to use to literally say, hey, are we all on the same page? Sometimes you need to create the visual that goes with that page. So I started doing that, and I started service diagramming that. I added it into our onboarding, and I started looking at what gaps do we have. And so sometimes I started thinking about this the other day, and I was like, we say user experience. This was kind of team experience, right? What's the team experience? And you have to research. I've done so much. I've done surveys, I've done training, interviews, prototyping and testing, like literally creating like mini programs and saying, hey, who's a team that wants to try this? And letting them try it. Instead of just like saying, everyone do this, it's let's create change management is hard. You don't want to just throw things out there and say like everyone change everything if they don't understand why. And your thing might not work. I've done plenty of things where it didn't work. And I was very thankful that we had a prototyping team to test it out, so that it wasn't like, ooh, okay, we learned a lot. We should not do that for everyone. But if you can find people willing to test it with them knowing like, hey, this is just a test, then you can start to figure out what really works and what you should scale and what you shouldn't. And so I would say everything has been kind of going through that same cycle that design and engineering uses to build for people, end users. We're doing the exact same thing from a management and ops perspective.
Yeah. Okay. Just curious, as you're doing this, do you think that understanding your team is more difficult with an existing team than it is with a team that you get to build?
Yes. I would say yes. If you're coming into a team, I think, yeah, you need to learn them first, right? Because if you come in thinking like, oh, I'm going to change everything and I'm going to do all of this, or if you don't understand them, you might not know what they've already tested or what they've tried and why they're at the point where they're at. But I also think it's a harder dynamic because they already have some of their own rhythms. They have some of their own expectations, ways of working. And, I think a lot of people really, resonate with, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But that doesn't mean, even if it's not broken, sometimes we can still improve. And sometimes they can't see their own gaps. So you have to build trust and relationships to like, hey, have you seen this gap, in a way that doesn't put them on the defensive, that doesn't make them feel like they're being overanalyzed, right? Because you're here to help. But that can be hard if you're seen as an outsider first. So you have to take time to build those relationships.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's talk about some of the processes that you have implemented to facilitate your team's work. The phrase ops will set you free, I think, was contained in the registration page for today's event. What do you think really helps facilitate what your teams are doing?
Sure. So I can't take credit for ops will set you free. That was from an amazing manager I had in my past. He's brilliant, and he's taught me a lot of what helped me realize what makes me flourish. But I agree with him for the most part. I do have to say all of this very lightly. All of this, like, you have to understand the level of structure and freedom that's appropriate for your organization. So when you say ops will set you free, if you're working at like a government agency where you have very, let's say, private or confidential information, you probably need a lot more structure in how you handle a lot of that than if you were working at I don't know, like a software company that sells ice cream or helps sell ice cream. Like, not both equal important. Everyone needs ice cream, but like you have more ability to take risk and have more freedom in certain spaces than you do in others. So while I tout the joys of ops will set you free, depending on where you are, you need to understand what balance is good. I'll give you one more metaphor. It's a trellis and vine metaphor for this. So if you have a trellis and you have a vine growing up the trellis is going to help your vine know where and how to grow. So think of the trellis as like your structure and your org, and the vine is your people. If the trellis is too rigid, that vine's going to wither and go away. It's not going to be able to grow because it has no space to grow. It's just going to cut it off and it's going to wither down. If the trellis is too loose, the vine can grow anywhere because it doesn't know actually where it's supposed to be growing. So it can take over and go in all directions, and then you lose everything. Sometimes that works for some organizations. Maybe they want the vine to go. They like organized chaos. It works for them. Looking at Netflix, apparently that works for them. And so, but when you have empowered teams, you have to really find the balance. So empowered teams is like, hey, here's the general direction that we're going. Now be empowered, go solve the problem. So here's maybe like the direction of the problem that we need to solve. Y'all solve it. We're going to trust you. So you have to find that balance, right? That was a very long answer to get to the things that we've done, but it prefaces why we did some of the things we did or didn't do. Yeah. I will say one of the most successful things has been, while we were empowering teams, we got to a certain point in scaling where it was like, I had 3 or 4 people a week coming to me asking who's working this project with whom. I was like, this is not effective. I can't. So what I had to do was then go and like ask everyone who's working this project, because a lot of this would happen conversationally. We do have partnerships, but sometimes you have like ad hoc projects that inevitably happen, and you're like, who's working that one? And so I was like, okay, as we scale, this is not effective. We have to have one place that we can go to where everyone can see who's working with whom and on what. Like, we need at least, some baseline foundations here. And so I started a sprint planning process where it was very light, wasn't heavy. So when you hear sprint planning, you're probably like, don't get scared. And what we did was we literally just went into Asana and started breaking down like the teams, what projects they were working, and then the main roles. We just started very basic. And we started over time implementing like, okay, now let's start adding milestones. Now let's start adding potential due dates. Let's start adding partnerships, and like, so that we could build these things out without making the team feel like they're over inundated with process. I will say that we went heavy-handed on a few things that did not go well. So we had to scale back, and we learned from that. And we're having to say, okay, like, this is the balance, where it was like the trellis started getting too rigid and they were like, no, what are you doing? You're taking away our freedom. And so we have to have those conversations and then just negotiations on, what is the right amount of structure so that they can still be innovative and thoughtful and do their jobs well, but where we have clarity and transparency. And because if you don't have that, that can also get in the way of everyone having better outcomes too. When you don't know who's working what, can be a problem.
Oh yeah, of course. That makes a ton of sense. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about feedback. As a manager, one of the things that you are tasked with is not just the work, but also, development and of your employees. So if you, in a management role, how do you approach constructive feedback when you're going to give that to an employee?
So Brené Brown, anyone? Brené Brown fans?
Oh yeah.
Clear is kind and unclear is unkind is kind of the motto I live by when it comes to that. I would say you have to know how to do this well, because clear can also hurt, right? Like, it's not that just because something's kind doesn't mean that it won't hurt sometimes. Like, sometimes you need to hear certain things that don't feel great. Right. But I think giving constructive feedback is absolutely one of your biggest roles as a manager. And it's also one of the biggest skills, most difficult skills to learn. I would say your role you're not there to shame people, right? You're there to inspire them. You also have to know like what level of failing is acceptable at your organization, right? So like you don't want to scare people to think that they can't fail. So you have to weigh like what level of constructive feedback again is appropriate. But these are great rules that I've learned either through having to do it or through some of the training and things that we've done. So clear, timely, achievable, and actionable feedback. So don't wait forever to give it. Like if it happened yesterday, like, and they're above the line. I don't know if have you guys heard that before? It's like above the line, below the line. Like if somebody's deep in their feelings and they're like below the line of acceptance, like giving them hard critical feedback when somebody's below the line may not have the results that you likely won't have the results that you want. You want to wait for them to be above the line to give some of this feedback, because that means that they're in an accepting or open stance. Below the line is like in a closed, like I can't even receive this stance. So you have to know that. So while you want to be right, you want to be timely, but you also want to be, you want to make sure they're in a space to receive it. There's frameworks too. Have y'all heard of like situational behavior impact? Or
I haven't, but I'm not in management, so it's entirely possible. It's very, very well understood on the call.
Well, there's also like STAR and STAR AR, which is like
I remember STAR, yeah.
Okay, action result. So it's you're basically focusing on the specifics. And so because if you want somebody to, you either want to affirm what somebody did and get them to keep doing that, right? That's motivating in one direction, or you want to correct and help them go in the direction that you would like them to go. That's really hard for someone to do if they don't know specifically what's wrong and what they should do. So think of STAR as like, you said X in the meeting, which was great because we had X result. Keep doing that. And so you're telling them not only the action, but what came out of that and why you want them to keep doing that. So STAR AR is, you said Y in the meeting, which had Y result, which was not good. Next time I need you to do Z so we can have Z result. So it's being very clear on like the situation, the task, the action, and result or outcome that you want. And I think it's a great framework because it makes it much, it keeps it from being too personal and more like factual and based on something that they can achieve.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. All right, let's talk about some of the interpersonal relationships. We talked earlier about kind of building that trust and rapport with your team, but what are some, specifics that people can do to foster those relationships among the team members?
Yeah. You got to find time to be vulnerable. You got to find time to actually be people together. We do weekly wrap-ups where it's like our team gets together and we reflect on the whole week. We say what went well, what didn't go so well, what was a struggle, and then we help each other. Like it's almost like a little mini like work therapy session. And then we try to say like insights of what we can do next time. So far the team has said that it's great and they love it. And I'm like, as long as it's helping you, we're going to keep doing it. It helps me too, because I get to, really get to know them in different ways that you might not if you didn't do that. You also want to celebrate each other, celebrate wins, like be each other's hype people, learn together, maybe, and whether it's not with work or not, right? Like go do cooking classes or go do design courses, be able to do that so that you can build trust that's not just based at work. And I think you need that because then you can build accountability, and you can also have fun together, like find space to have fun together. And providing that space for people goes a long way.
Well, it's like you said earlier, you want them to see you not just as the manager, but as like a person like you. So yeah, it makes sense that you would want to do that in ways that explore and foster those relationships, not just in a work setting. I think that's really important.
Go ask ChatGPT.
No, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was saying, go ask ChatGPT. Just be like, how do I be a fun manager?
Well, I like that idea. Okay, what do you think a successful and mindful design manager looks like?
So this is tough. You guys are probably tired of me saying it depends, but being thoughtful about it is really important. There's so many different ways to be successful as a design manager now. And no one will be perfect at all of them. The landscape is always changing, right? Like you could be extremely strategic and product driven and product focused and design focused, but be awful at all the ops stuff and like not know how to like help people manage their time or help people be able to like set up effective meetings and like have great meeting cadences or critique feedback sessions. Like there's kind of two sides to this that I see where people are like, what kind of manager do I want to be? And I've seen a lot of people talk about this lately, just all around, is like, do we need managers that can do both or one or the other? But I will say, like, find what's right for you and find an organization that fits that. Like if you're more on the strategy side of things and craft side, lean into that as a manager, grow in that space. And that's helping you be mindful about how you're approaching your team. You might even find that there's certain team members that need different levels of each, depending on where they're at in their career. But I think you also need to understand how the world's changing, like tools, the economy, industry shifts, pandemics, when, right? Like when a whole team goes virtual overnight, like you have to be able to adapt. And so I think to be successful and mindful, you have to be able to do that. We're talking about Chat GPT, artificial intelligence, pandemic, not the pandemic. We already talked about that, but yeah, you have to know how you can utilize these things rather than be afraid of them working against you. You have to find the opportunities within them. There's a little bit of failing forward in this again, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think, the one thing that we haven't talked about yet, but I feel like gets mentioned a lot on these chats, people, like, our brains do not learn from success. We learn from failure. So when you are looking at somebody who knows how to do something, you're not looking at someone who's in any way like better than you or more advanced or something. You're just looking at somebody who has failed at some point and learned from it. So, it is really, really important to remember that because you don't learn from success, you need to fail. There need to be failures or you don't learn anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important to find cultures that will embrace that. And I actually, one of my biggest failures one time, I remember it was an ad. This was like early in my career. And we were supposed to say like manage something on an ad. And I remember this, and there was a misspelling. It said mange instead of manage. And this went out, like this was paid to go out to people. And I remember feeling awful. And I went to my manager and I was like, I messed this up. I'm so sorry. I want to take full like responsibility. And he looked at me and he said, you won't next time. It's okay. Because he knew that failure was so rough on me. He was like, and he was like, also, you weren't the only person. He was like, we have other people that can proofread and edit.
That's a good point.
But it really stuck with me. And so I brought that into my management as well, is, you really do have to allow, like, balance the amount of critical feedback you give, right? Like, is this a teachable moment or has somebody already learned the lesson and they just need to feel space because they already, you can see it and you can hear it in their voice, see it on their face, hear it in their voice. They've learned it and they're not going to do it again. Like, they need those moments. They don't need to be like ridiculed and shamed, right?
Agreed. Yeah. Okay, we have a little over 5 minutes left. I want to get to one more question, and then we've got some stuff we're going to talk about with CallRail. What is one piece of advice that you would give to aspiring design managers?
It was so hard to just pick one. So I would say make sure you know why you want to manage. You can lead in so many different ways. If you just want to lead, you can find ways, and you can do it without having to manage people. So make sure you want, really ask yourself, do I want to lead or do I want to manage people, or both? Do I just want to lead strategy? Do I want to go to a lot of meetings? Are you, do you have that kind of energy to invest in others? Ask yourself, do I enjoy seeing others succeed and helping them succeed and making that my main focus and helping to coach in that direction or not?
Yeah. Okay. I like that. All right, so I'm going to share my screen now. We're going to talk through some questions. We had asked these of Amanda prior to today's session, and wanted to go through a couple of these because she had some really great advice for people. So what is one word that you would describe, use to describe the company culture at CallRail?
So I picked stimulating.
What is the most stimulating aspect of it? Do you think that it's the projects you work on, the people that are with you? What do you think is the most kind of invigorating part of it?
So we are fast paced. We have a lot of opportunity to like impact at many, many different levels. So I would say the stimulating aspect is you do have the opportunity to kind of invest in whatever way you want to. Like if you're intrinsically motivated and you have an idea, you can usually see that to fruition, and so it's incredibly stimulating because there's no lack of ideas. There's always an opportunity for something.
Excellent. All right, what is your favorite part about working at CallRail?
The people and the ability to pioneer. I know sometimes people say that a lot. I hear almost any time I hear somebody ask what do they love about CallRail, people always say the people. And it's true. We have really, really amazing people that we work with. I'm kind of blown away sometimes by just their ability to not only not how they think and their talents and what they're capable of doing, but their openness to collaborate, get creative, to be able to solve big problems. It's inspiring for me to see. And you asked me earlier, have you ever kind of missed something and wanted to be a part of it still and be in those pixels? It happens. People are thinking of a lot of great things all the time. They're very impressive. I'm impressed every day.
Very cool. All right. Last but not least, what is your top tip for someone who's interviewing? And is this like interviewing across the board, or is this maybe CallRail specific for interviewing?
I think I was thinking CallRail specific, but it might work for other places. I said share your personality and accomplishments and let them shine through good storytelling. I think too often we try to be the person we think the interviewer wants us to be so that we can get the role. And there's a time and a place for that. And that's real, right? Like sometimes you need the job. And then you work on all this stuff after. But I think that if you're at that space where you can truly live into finding what's really, truly a good fit for you and for them, then you're going to have the most fun. You're going to be excited to go to work every day. So if you let that shine through and somebody's like, wow, I really like who this person is, I love their stories, I love who they are, then you know that you found a place that cares about you and who you are. And that's going to be so much more fulfilling at the end of the day.
Yeah, that is a really good point. You're right. There are absolutely plenty of times where I have sucked it up and been the person the job needed because that's, your girl can't live on water and sunshine.
Right.
So, I do think you're right. There are absolutely positions for that and time and places for that. But you're right. If you are trying to find some place that's going to really support you, in a lot of ways, you need to show up as who you are so that way you can accurately judge, is this going to be the place that is going to help you grow? Is this going to be the place that helps you to develop your skills or that, keeps you engaged at work every day? Like you trying to do it while pretending to be someone else or even just kind of, tamping down bits of yourself is really difficult. Like it's a lot of mental strain to try and keep that up. So I think it's really, really important that you do share your personality. Better to know at the interview phase than after you've done your happy dance of, I don't have to interview anymore. This is great. And then you're like, no, this isn't the place for me.
Right. Exactly.
All right, that is going to bring us to our end of time today. I just want to say a huge thank you, Amanda, for spending time with us. All the prep work you did in advance absolutely shows. And we really, really appreciate you being so generous with your time as well as your expertise today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Really, really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, to all of our audience members out there, thank you so much for participating in today's session. Thank you for joining. Obviously, I wouldn't have a job without you, but honestly, even more than that, I love to see y'all participate in these because it helps me to know that y'all are getting something out of these events. So thank you so much for everybody who joined us today. And don't forget to pat yourself on the back, y'all. You took an hour out of your day to do something positive for yourself and your career. That is not an easy feat. So congratulations to all of you. Now, if you are one of our frequent flyers, I can't wait to see you on an upcoming event. If this is your first Power to Fly event, I really hope that we see you again soon. Have a great rest of your day, week, weekend, and yeah, keep on smiling, y'all. Bye.
I always feel like there should be like recessional music, like a wedding.
I know. I was trying to get it to work earlier and it was like not working for me. So bad. All